Strangers keep apologizing to me for something I don't remember. The barista at Moonbeam Coffee dropped my latte the moment she saw my face. Oh my god, she whispered, scrambling for napkins as foam splattered across the counter. Maya, I'm so sorry. About everything. What Emma did to you was... What? I stepped back, confusion flooding my chest. I'm sorry, do we know each other? Her cheeks flushed crimson. The name tag pinned to her green apron read Jessica. I'd never seen her before in my life, yet she was staring at me like I was some tragic figure from a news story. I was at state too. Business major? We had Econ 301 together junior year. She grabbed more napkins, avoiding my eyes. Look, I should have said something back then. We all should have. It wasn't right. My hands trembled as I accepted the fresh latte she pressed into them. Said something about what? Jessica's face crumpled. The party. Last December. I can't believe you're even out and about after. She stopped abruptly, studying my blank expression. You really don't remember, do you? Remember what party? But she was already backing away, shaking her head like she'd revealed some terrible secret. I have to get back to work. The drink's on the house. I stood there for a full minute, watching her busy herself with the espresso machine, pointedly ignoring my stare. Other customers flowed around me, a few shooting curious glances my way. December. She'd said December. The month was a complete void in my memory, along with most of November and January. Dr. Patel had warned me about the gaps after my accident, retrograde amnesia from the concussion when that pickup truck ran the red light on Highway 52. 6 months of physical therapy and cognitive exercises had brought most everything back, but chunks of my senior year remained frustratingly blank. The bell above the door chimed as I stepped onto Maple Street. My phone buzzed immediately. Asterisk Maya. Saw your Instagram post from downtown. You look amazing. Again, I'm sorry for not reaching out sooner after what happened. Hope you can forgive me someday. Rachel K. Asterisk. I stared at the text. Rachel Kowalski from my dorm freshman year. We hadn't spoken since she moved off campus sophomore year, so why was she apologizing? And what Instagram post? I barely used social media since the accident, mainly because scrolling made my head ache. Opening Instagram for the first time in weeks, I found a single photo I'd posted that morning, me smiling outside the coffee shop, captioned Beautiful Tuesday. Already, 7 comments had appeared. So brave of you to show your face. You don't deserve any of this. Emma was completely out of line. Still can't believe what she did to you. Emma. My chest tightened at the name. Emma Rodriguez had been my roommate senior year, my best friend since sophomore orientation when we bonded over our shared obsession with true crime podcasts and midnight pizza runs. But like everything else from those missing months, our friendship existed only in fragments, studying for finals in the library, planning our post-graduation trip to Portland, her laugh echoing through our tiny apartment. So why did seeing her name in these comments make my stomach twist with something that felt suspiciously like dread? I deleted the Instagram post within minutes, but the damage was done. My phone kept buzzing with notifications, more comments, direct messages, friend requests from people whose names sparked no recognition. Each ping felt like a small electric shock. Back in my studio apartment, I spread my laptop, phone, and a legal pad across the kitchen table like some amateur detective. If there really was a party, if something had happened involving Emma, there had to be evidence somewhere. Digital breadcrumbs that survived my memory wipe. I started with my text messages from December. Most of my conversation history with Emma showed as a long gap, either I deleted everything or she had. But scrolling back to November 28th, I found the last exchange. Asterisk Emma, can't wait for Sigma Chi's winter formal after party. Jake promised the good champagne asterisk. Asterisk me, still can't believe you got us invited. Wasn't sure Derek's crowd liked us much asterisk. Asterisk Emma, trust me, everything's going to be perfect. You deserve this night heartsuit asterisk. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. 3 days later, my phone records showed a flurry of activity, 17 missed calls between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. on December 1st, mostly from numbers I didn't recognize. Then nothing. Radio silence until December 15th when my mom started texting about visiting me in the hospital. I pulled up my banking app next, scanning December transactions. Nothing unusual until December 2nd, a $127 charge to Morton's Photography downtown. I'd never been to Morton's in my life, had no reason to hire a photographer. My hand shook as I called the number. Morton Studio, this is Pete. Hi, this is Maya Chin. I have a charge from December 2nd, but I can't remember what it was for. A pause. Maya Chin, yeah, you came in pretty upset. Wanted prints deleted from our system and all digital copies destroyed. We had to charge you for the rush job and disposal fee. My throat went dry. What kind of prints? Look, you were crying, said someone had stolen photos from your phone and gotten them printed here without permission. You had the order number, so we verified and destroyed everything per your request. Professional photos, looked like they were taken at some kind of party or event. The room tilted sideways. I gripped the table edge until my knuckles went white. Do you remember what the photos showed? I'm not comfortable discussing. Please. I was in a car accident. I don't remember any of this. Pete's voice softened. Nothing explicit, if that's what you're worried about. Just, you looked pretty intoxicated in them. Unflattering angles, you know? Someone had added text overlay on a few. Cruel stuff. I remember thinking it looked like revenge porn, but technical it wasn't since you were clothed. The call ended with my hands trembling so badly I could barely hang up. Someone had taken photos of me while I was drunk, edited them to look worse, then printed them. But who? And why would Emma's name keep coming up in connection with whatever happened? I opened Facebook and searched for the Sigma Chi house page. Their December 1st post showed dozens of photos from winter formal after party epic night. I scrolled through images of couples dancing, groups raising champagne flutes, people laughing around a bonfire in the backyard. Then I saw myself. The photo was tagged, Maya C getting her party on. I was slumped against a couch, hair disheveled, eyes unfocused, red Solo cup tilted dangerously in my hand. Someone had written lightweight across my forehead in black marker. But it was the person kneeling beside me, grinning at the camera while making bunny ears behind my head, that made my blood freeze. Emma. My best friend Emma, clearly sober, clearly posing, while I looked like a disaster. The photo had 847 likes and 93 comments. The comments under that Facebook photo were a digital graveyard of my reputation. Classic Maya, can't handle her alcohol lol. Someone should check on her, this is getting sad. Why does she always do this at parties? Emma, you're such a good friend for babysitting. But it was the timestamp that made my chest constrict, 11:43 p.m. on December 1st. I looked wasted, completely gone, yet my banking records showed I'd been coherent enough to visit Morton's photography first thing the next morning. Something didn't add up. I screenshotted everything before diving deeper into the comments thread. Most were from people I barely knew, but a few stood out. Derek Morrison, Maya's really going off the rails lately. Ashley Park, this is just embarrassing at this point. Connor Walsh, feel bad for her roommate having to deal with this. Derek Morrison. The name triggered something, a flash of memory so brief I almost missed it. Derek with his arm around my waist, his breath hot against my ear, saying something that made me uncomfortable. But the harder I tried to grasp the memory, the more it slipped away like water through my fingers. I found Derek's profile and scrolled back to December. On December 3rd, he'd posted, some people never learn when they've worn out their welcome. Sigma Chi values loyalty and respect, qualities certain individuals clearly lack. The post had 47 likes, including one from Emma. My laptop screen blurred as tears gathered in my eyes. I blinked them away and kept searching. Emma's profile from December was a masterclass in passive-aggressive concern trolling. Asterisk December 2nd, praying for those who struggle with self-destructive behaviors. Sometimes the people closest to us need the most help. Red heart hashtag mental health hashtag friendship asterisk. Asterisk December 4th, it's hard when someone you care about makes choices that hurt everyone around them. Setting boundaries is self-care. Hashtag toxic people hashtag growing up asterisk. Asterisk December 8th, finally got my deposit back for our Portland trip. Sometimes the universe protects us from situations that weren't meant to be. Hashtag everything happens for a reason asterisk. Our Portland trip. We'd planned it for months, splitting the cost of flights and a boutique hotel in the Pearl District. Emma had been more excited than I was, researching restaurants and bookmarking Instagram spots. Now she was framing its cancellation as divine intervention. I called my bank's customer service line and navigated through the phone tree until I reached a human. After verifying my identity, I asked about the Portland trip expenses. I see 2 transactions related to Portland in November, the representative said. A $247 charge to Delta Airlines on November 15th, and $189 to the Nob Hill Riveter Hotel on November 18th. Both charges were reversed on December 3rd. Reversed by who? The reversals came from the vendors, not from your account. Usually that means someone else initiated the cancellations using the original booking confirmations. Someone else. Emma had access to my email, my laptop, even my credit card number for shared expenses. She could have canceled everything and made it look like the vendor's decision. My phone rang, making me jump. Unknown number with a local area code. Hello? Maya? This is Brandon. Brandon Kim? From your contemporary ethics seminar? I vaguely remembered him, quiet guy who sat in the back row, always wore a Seahawks beanie. Listen, I know this is weird calling out of nowhere, but I saw you downtown earlier and I couldn't stop thinking about how messed up that whole December thing was. I should have said something at the time. My pulse quickened. What do you remember about December? The party, the photos, everything that went down afterward. Look, Derek Morrison is my cousin, okay? And I heard him and Emma talking the week before Sigma Chi's party. They were planning something, said you needed to be taken down a peg because you were getting too close to some guy Emma liked. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. What guy? Marcus Webb from your journalism class. Emma was obsessed with him, but apparently he asked you to study together or something. She was furious, going on about how you always got everything handed to you, how people liked you without you even trying. Brandon's voice dropped. Maya, I think they drugged your drink that night. You weren't acting drunk, you were acting sedated. There's a difference. The room spun around me. Why didn't you tell anyone? I was a coward. Derek's helped me get jobs, internships, everything. But seeing you today, looking so lost. I can't keep quiet anymore. Emma documented the whole thing, Maya. She has photos, videos, screenshots of people talking about you afterward. She kept it all like some kind of trophy collection. Brandon's words echoed in my ears long after he hung up. Emma hadn't just betrayed me, she'd orchestrated my complete social destruction and then preserved it like a scrapbook. But now I knew the truth. And Emma had no idea I was remembering. I needed to see Marcus Webb. Finding him wasn't hard, journalism majors at State were a tight-knit group, and his byline appeared regularly in the campus newspaper. According to the directory, he lived in graduate housing on Oak Street, a 10-minute walk from my apartment. The building was one of those converted Victorian houses, painted yellow with white trim, divided into studio units for grad students. I stood on the front steps for 5 minutes, rehearsing what I'd say. How do you ask someone about a relationship you can't remember having? Marcus answered on the third knock. He was taller than I'd expected, with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his fingers through it and wire-rimmed glasses perched on his nose. Recognition flickered across his face, followed immediately by something that looked like pain. Maya. He said my name like it hurt. I wasn't sure I'd see you again. Can we talk? About December? His shoulders sagged. Come in. The studio was cramped but organized, with bookshelves lining every wall and a desk covered in notepads and newspaper clippings. 2 coffee mugs sat on a small table by the window. He'd been expecting someone. I should explain, he started, but I held up my hand. I have retrograde amnesia from a car accident. I don't remember anything from November through January. People keep apologizing to me about some party, and Emma's name keeps coming up, but I can't piece together what actually happened. Marcus stared at me for a long moment. You really don't remember? Remember what? He moved to his desk and pulled out a folder from the bottom drawer. I kept these because I thought someday you might want to set the record straight. After the accident, when you were in the hospital, I figured you had enough to deal with. The folder contained printouts of social media posts, screenshots of text messages, and what looked like a timeline written in Marcus's careful handwriting. December 1st through December 14th, documented like a news story. We were study partners, he began, settling into the chair across from me. Started in October when Professor Martinez paired us up for the investigative journalism project. You were brilliant, Maya. Funny and sharp and passionate about uncovering the truth. We'd meet at the library 3 times a week, then started grabbing coffee afterward. I studied his face as he spoke, searching for some spark of recognition. Nothing. I liked you, he continued quietly. Asked if you wanted to go to the Winter Film Festival together, as a date. You said yes. We were supposed to go December 3rd. What happened? Marcus opened the folder and pulled out a screenshot. It was a group text message from December 2nd, with Emma's number at the top. Asterisk Emma to study group chat, just wanted everyone to know Maya's been spreading rumors about sleeping with Marcus Webb to get better grades in Martinez's class. Really disappointed in her behavior lately, asterisk. Asterisk Jessica Santos, wait, what? Maya doesn't seem like the type, asterisk. Asterisk Emma, I know, right? I'm her roommate so I see everything. She's been bragging about manipulating him. Says older guys are easy targets, asterisk. Asterisk Derek Morrison, that's fucked up. Poor Marcus, asterisk. Connor Walsh, Maya always seemed shady to me, tbh. Asterisk Emma, I feel terrible sharing this but people should know. She's been using people all semester, asterisk. I stared at the messages, my hands shaking. This never happened. I would never. I know, Marcus said firmly. But by December 2nd, half the journalism department had heard some version of this story. People started treating me like either a predator or an idiot. Professor Martinez pulled me aside to ask if I was maintaining appropriate boundaries with younger students. He showed me another screenshot, this one from Emma's Instagram story on December 3rd. It was a photo of her and me from months earlier, both of us laughing in our apartment living room. But Emma had added text overlay, when your roommate finally admits she's been lying about hooking up with her study partner for grades, flushed face, sometimes you don't know people at all. She posted this the day after the party? The day you were supposed to go to the film festival with me. Instead, you sent me a text at 2 a.m. saying you were dropping out of school and never wanted to see me again. Except. He pulled out a final screenshot. The text came from a phone number that wasn't yours. The number on the screenshot was 1 digit off from mine. My actual number ended in 7, this one ended in 4. Emma got a burner phone, I whispered. That's what I figured. But by then, the damage was done. You disappeared from campus for 2 weeks. When people asked Emma where you were, she said you were having a breakdown and had gone home to your parents. Made it sound like you'd been unstable for months. I thought about my parents, how worried they'd been when they got the call about my accident on December 15th. They'd driven straight to the hospital in Spokane, where I'd been airlifted after the crash on Highway 52. But if Emma told everyone I was home with them, where was I really? Those 2 weeks before the accident? Marcus's expression grew troubled. I don't know. That's what scared me the most. Emma kept posting updates about your mental health journey and how she was giving you space to heal, but no one actually saw you anywhere. Not on campus, not around town, not even at your apartment. A chill ran down my spine. 2 weeks. I'd been missing for 2 weeks, and Emma had covered for it by telling everyone I was somewhere else. But where had I actually been? The silence in Marcus's studio stretched between us like a chasm. I stared at the timeline he'd created, my finger tracing the 2-week gap between December 1st and December 15th, the day of my accident. 14 days of my life, completely unaccounted for. I need to see my apartment, I said suddenly. The one I shared with Emma. Marcus looked confused. You don't live there anymore? I've been in a studio downtown since March. My parents found it while I was doing physical therapy. I assumed Emma and I had just grown apart after graduation. Maya. His voice was gentle. You never graduated. You were supposed to walk in May, but you never completed your final semester. The accident happened 2 weeks before finals. The words hit me like a physical blow. No graduation. No degree. No wonder I'd been struggling to find decent work, settling for part-time gigs and living off my savings. Everyone thought I'd graduated state, including me. Even my parents had never corrected that assumption. I have to go, I stood abruptly, shoving the screenshots into my purse. Wait. Marcus caught my arm. If you're right about Emma, if she really orchestrated all of this, then she's dangerous. You can't just confront her alone. But I was already heading for the door. She doesn't know I remember anything. That's my advantage. The apartment I'd shared with Emma was in Riverside Commons, a complex popular with seniors because of its proximity to campus bars. I still had my old key, muscle memory guided my fingers to the spare pocket in my wallet where I'd apparently kept it all these months. The lock turned easily. Too easily. Emma stood in the kitchen, back to me, stirring something in a large pot. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the air, homey and familiar. She didn't turn around when I entered. I was wondering when you'd come back, she said casually, as if I'd just stepped out for groceries instead of disappearing for 6 months. My blood turned to ice. Emma. She finally faced me, and I was struck by how normal she looked. Same shoulder-length black hair, same bright smile, same paint-stained apron she'd worn whenever she cooked for us. But her eyes held something I'd never noticed before, a calculating coldness that made my skin crawl. You look good, Maya. Recovery suits you. She turned back to her cooking. Though I see you've been busy playing detective. Marcus called to warn me you'd been asking questions. Of course he had. I felt stupid for trusting him so quickly. He's a good friend, Emma continued, tasting her sauce. Felt terrible about leading you on before the accident. We've been dating since February, actually. Bonded over our shared concern for your well-being. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. Marcus, with his careful timeline and sympathetic expressions, had been working with Emma all along. Where was I? I forced my voice to stay steady. Those 2 weeks before the accident. Emma's smile widened. You really don't remember? Dr. Hartwell said the trauma might block certain memories permanently. Something about the mind protecting itself from unbearable experiences. Dr. Hartwell? The psychiatrist at Millfield Behavioral Center. Lovely facility, very discreet. You were a voluntary admission, of course, after your little breakdown at the party. She ladled sauce over what looked like enough pasta for 4 people. Are you staying for dinner? I made your favorite, pesto with sun-dried tomatoes. Millfield Behavioral Center. I'd heard the name before, whispered in conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. It was a private psychiatric hospital about 2 hours outside the city, the kind of place wealthy families sent their children when addiction or mental illness became too public. I was never a patient there. Oh, but you were. Admitted yourself on December 2nd after that unfortunate incident with Derek Morrison. You were so distraught, kept insisting someone had drugged you, that everyone was conspiring against you. Classic paranoid delusions brought on by academic stress and binge drinking. Emma's voice took on a mockingly therapeutic tone. The doctors were very understanding. Said it was quite common for high-achieving students to snap under pressure. She pulled a manila folder from the counter drawer, identical to the one Marcus had shown me. But this one was thicker, more organized, with official letterhead visible through the manila coating. Voluntary admission papers, signed by you. Treatment notes from Dr. Hartwell documenting your paranoid episodes and alcohol-induced psychosis. Discharge papers from December 15th, recommending outpatient therapy and stress management. Emma's eyes glittered. You were driving to your first therapy appointment when that truck ran the red light. Tragic irony, really. I grabbed the folder, hands shaking as I flipped through documents that bore my signature, documents I had no memory of signing. The admission form was dated December 2nd at 3:47 a.m. The handwriting looked like mine, but shakier, more erratic. You forged these. Did I? Dr. Hartwell certainly seemed convinced you were genuine when you begged him to help you stop the voices telling you that everyone was plotting against you. Emma moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Of course, a few well-timed phone calls from your concerned roommate, sharing examples of your increasingly erratic behavior, may have influenced his assessment. The pasta water began to boil over, hissing against the burner. Emma turned off the heat without breaking eye contact. The beautiful thing about psychiatric holds, Maya, is that they create their own paper trail. Once you're in the system as an unstable person, everything you say becomes a symptom instead of testimony. The psychiatric records felt like weapons in my hands. Each page was a masterpiece of manipulation, doctor's notes describing my increasingly paranoid ideation and alcohol-induced delusional episodes, all building a case for someone who existed only in Emma's imagination. You're wondering how I managed the signatures, Emma said, settling into the breakfast nook we'd shared hundreds of mornings. Remember when you had that stomach flu in October? You were so out of it, signing whatever I put in front of you, rent checks, utility bills, that credit card application for our Portland trip. My stomach lurched. You practiced forging my signature for months. Practice makes perfect. Though I'll admit, getting the admission paperwork to look authentic at 3 a.m. was challenging. Amazing what a little Benedict's solution can do to age ink, make it look like genuine panic writing instead of careful forgery. Benedict's solution. Emma was a chemistry minor, she'd know exactly how to artificially age documents. I flipped to the treatment notes, scanning Dr. Hartwell's neat handwriting. According to his records, I'd been convinced that my roommate was orchestrating a systematic campaign to destroy my reputation and relationships. The irony was suffocating. Patient demonstrates classic signs of persecution complex, one entry read. Claims roommate Emma Rodriguez has been setting her up and turning people against her, despite MS. Rodriguez's obvious concern and multiple attempts to help patients seek treatment. Brilliant touch, wasn't it? The closer your delusions came to the truth, the crazier you sounded. Emma pulled out her phone, scrolling through what looked like voice memos. I recorded some of our conversations in November, when you started getting suspicious about Derek's behavior. Listen to this. My own voice filled the kitchen, high-pitched with anxiety. Emma, something's not right. Derek keeps texting me weird stuff, and Jessica from the coffee shop was acting strange when I mentioned the Sigma Chi party. It's like everyone knows something I don't. Then Emma's voice, perfectly calibrated with concerned patience. Maya, honey, you're being paranoid again. Maybe you should talk to someone professional about these feelings. You see? Emma paused the recording. I was the worried friend, you were the unstable roommate spiraling into delusion. By the time December 1st came around, I had hours of audio documenting your deteriorating mental state. The folder contained more horrors. Phone records showing multiple calls from Emma to Millfield's crisis line, expressing urgent concern for her roommate's safety. Credit card statements proving I'd purchased a Greyhound ticket to Millfield on December 2nd, except I'd never bought that ticket. You used my card. With your enthusiastic permission, according to the recording I have of you begging me to help you go somewhere safe after the party. Emma's smile was radiant. Amazing what people will believe when presented with proper documentation and a consistent narrative. But something nagged at me. If I was supposedly at Millfield for 2 weeks, how did I end up on Highway 52 the day I was discharged? That road doesn't connect to any therapy offices. Emma's expression flickered, just for a second, but I caught it. You were confused after discharge. Dr. Hartwell noted that some patients experience disorientation when transitioning back to normal life. Highway 52 leads to the Cascade Mountains, Emma. The only thing out there is camping areas and... I stopped, memory fragments suddenly clicking together. The Morrison family cabin. Derek's family owns property out there. The color drained from Emma's face. You were taking me back there, weren't you? Back to where it started. The party was just the beginning, you had something worse planned for those 2 weeks. Emma stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You're being paranoid again, Maya. Just like before. Maybe you need to go back to Millfield for a refresher course in managing your delusions. But I was already backing toward the door, the folder clutched against my chest. Because I'd just realized something crucial. If Emma had forged my admission to Millfield, she'd also arranged my discharge. Which meant she'd been the one driving me toward Highway 52 that December afternoon. The car accident hadn't been random at all. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Emma hadn't just orchestrated my social destruction, she tried to kill me. You were driving, I whispered, my back pressed against the apartment door. The day of the accident. You picked me up from Millfield. Emma's mask finally slipped completely. The warm smile vanished, replaced by something cold and predatory. Prove it. But I was already remembering fragments now, pieces falling into place like a horrific puzzle. The smell of Emma's vanilla perfume in a confined space. The sound of her voice, tense and angry, saying something about loose ends and starting fresh. The sudden jerk of a steering wheel, the screech of brakes, and then nothing. The police report said I was alone in the car. Because you were, by the time they found you. Emma moved closer, and I noticed her hands were trembling slightly. I pulled you out before anyone arrived. Couldn't have my dear friend dying alone in a wreck, could I? You left me there. My voice cracked. You caused the accident and then left me bleeding on the highway. I saved your life, Maya. That truck was going to hit us both until I swerved at the last second. You should be thanking me. The folder in my hands felt like evidence now, not just Emma's trophy collection. Except you didn't swerve to avoid the truck. You swerved into oncoming traffic because you realized I was starting to remember what really happened at the cabin. Emma's laugh was sharp, brittle. What cabin? You were at Millfield, getting the help you desperately needed. But I could see it in her eyes, panic, quickly masked but not quite fast enough. She'd made a mistake earlier, and we both knew it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my mother, asterisk sweetie, found some of your mail from December while cleaning the garage. Should I forward it to your new address, asterisk? Mail from December, I said aloud, watching Emma's face. From when I was supposedly locked up in a psychiatric facility with no outside contact. Emma shrugged, but her casual demeanor was cracking. Probably just junk mail. Credit card offers, that sort of thing. Another text from my mother, this one with a photo attachment. This one looks important, from your internship at the Tribune. The Tribune. I'd forgotten about the internship I'd landed for spring semester, the one that would have started in January. In the photo, I could see the letterhead clearly, Spokane Tribune, congratulations on your acceptance to our investigative journalism program. I had a job lined up, I said, pieces clicking together. A real job at a real newspaper, starting January 15th. That's why you had to act fast, wasn't it? You knew once I started working as an investigative journalist, I'd have the skills and resources to uncover what you'd done. Emma's composure was dissolving by the second. You're being ridiculous. You were in no state to work anywhere. The Tribune doesn't hire people fresh out of psychiatric hospitals, Emma. Which means when I applied in November, I was completely lucid and functional. Your timeline doesn't work. My phone rang, my mother, probably wondering why I wasn't responding to her texts. I answered on speaker. Hi, Mom. Maya, honey, I'm looking at this letter from the Tribune. It's dated December 10th, and it mentions a phone interview you had on December 8th. But I thought you said you were in the hospital that whole time? Emma lunged for my phone, but I stepped back quickly. Mom, what exactly does the letter say? It's confirming your start date of January 15th and praising your investigative work on some story about Campus Greek life. Says your editor was impressed by your research into systematic hazing and assault cover-ups at State University. The kitchen went dead silent. Emma stared at me like I'd just pulled a gun. Mom, I need you to scan that letter and email it to me right now. And any other mail from December. Of course, sweetheart. Is everything all right? Emma was already moving toward the kitchen drawer where she'd kept the psychiatric records. But I was closer to the door now, and I had what I needed. Everything's perfect, Mom. I'm finally remembering things. The letter from the Tribune arrived in my inbox within minutes. As I read it on my phone screen, standing in the doorway of my former apartment, Emma's face went ashen. Dear Ms. Chen, I read aloud, we're thrilled to confirm your position in our investigative journalism program beginning January 15th. Your preliminary research into systematic misconduct within State University's Greek system shows exceptional promise. We're particularly interested in your findings regarding the Sigma Chi chapter and their documented pattern of targeting female students. Emma slammed the kitchen drawer shut so hard the entire cabinet shook. That research was bullshit, Maya. Conspiracy theories and paranoid fantasies. But my mother's email contained more than just the Tribune letter. She'd scanned everything, bank statements, medical appointments, even a receipt from Legal Aid Services dated December 7th for consultation regarding harassment and fraud documentation. I was building a legal case, I whispered, scrolling through the documents. That's what you couldn't let happen. The legal aid receipt was for $50, exactly what they charged for initial consultations about filing restraining orders and criminal complaints. According to my calendar screenshots, I'd had appointments scheduled for December 16th with both the police and the university's Title IX office. Emma was pacing now, her earlier composure completely shattered. You were sick, Maya. Paranoid and delusional, Anne. I was investigating. My voice grew stronger as the pieces clicked together. The Tribune internship wasn't just about general campus journalism. I was specifically looking into Greek life misconduct, which means I'd already uncovered something about Sigma Chi before the party ever happened. I pulled up my banking app, scrolling back further than I'd looked before. In early November, I'd made several small payments to various services, $25 to Truthfinder for background checks, $15 to publicrecords.com, $30 to a private investigator named Janet Walsh. Janet Walsh, I said, watching Emma's face. I hired a PI to help with my investigation. Emma stopped pacing. You need to leave. Now. But I was already dialing the number from my bank records. Janet Walsh answered on the second ring, her voice gravelly but sharp. Maya Chen. Jesus, I wondered what happened to you. You disappeared right before we were supposed to meet with that Tribune editor. Emma could hear every word, I kept the volume high intentionally. I had an accident, but I'm recovering. Can you tell me what we were investigating? The Morrison family's little empire, of course. Derek's daddy has been covering up sexual assaults at 3 different universities over the past 5 years. We had bank records showing payments to victims, NDAs, even bribes to campus police. You'd found the smoking gun, a recorded confession from Derek admitting to drugging girls at parties. My legs nearly gave out. A recording? That secret little app you put on your phone after he cornered you at the library in October. Smart thinking, kid. We had him dead to rights talking about his party techniques and how his dad's money always made problems disappear. Emma was backing toward the kitchen, her eyes darting between me and something behind the counter. But I was focused on Janet's words, fragments of memory suddenly blazing to life. Derek Morrison grabbing my arm outside the library, his breath hot with alcohol and entitlement. You think you're so fucking smart, but you have no idea who you're messing with. My family owns half this town, including people you think are your friends. And then Emma's voice, soothing and supportive. Maya, you should record him if he's threatening you. I know an app that can do it automatically. Emma helped me install the recording app, I said slowly. Janet's laugh was bitter. Yeah, your roommate. Funny thing about that app, though, it sends copies to multiple email addresses for backup security. Turns out one of those backup addresses belonged to Derek Morrison himself. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that for a moment I couldn't breathe. Emma hadn't just helped me gather evidence against Derek, she'd made sure he knew exactly what I had on him. You set me up from the beginning, I whispered. Emma's hand was behind the counter now, gripping something I couldn't see. You were going to ruin everything, Maya. Derek's family promised me a job at their firm after graduation. A real job, not some pathetic newspaper internship. So you fed him everything. My investigation, my evidence, my meeting schedule with the Tribune. Derek needed time to clean things up. Make some problems disappear. Emma's voice had gone cold again, but her hands were shaking. The party was just supposed to discredit you, make you look unreliable. But then you kept pushing, kept digging, even after everyone turned against you. Behind the counter, I caught a glimpse of what Emma was holding, a kitchen knife, the long one we'd used for chopping vegetables during countless shared meals. That's why Millfield, I continued, backing toward the door. You needed me completely out of the picture while Derek buried the evidence. 2 weeks should have been enough. But you started remembering things during therapy, asking questions about inconsistencies in your admission paperwork. Emma's grip tightened on the knife. Dr. Hartwell called me December 14th, said you were demanding to speak with police about false imprisonment and fraud. So you decided to make my accident permanent. Emma stepped around the counter, the blade catching the afternoon light streaming through the kitchen window. You're having another episode, Maya. The stress of recovery has triggered your paranoid delusions again. I'll have to call Dr. Hartwell, tell him you broke into our apartment and started making wild accusations. But I was already at the door, my hand on the deadbolt. Except this time, Janet Walsh knows where I am. And she's got copies of everything, including that recording app data showing exactly when and how you betrayed me. Emma lunged forward, but I was already through the door, slamming it behind me and running for the stairwell. Behind me, I could hear her screaming, not words, just pure rage and desperation. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, hands shaking as I started the engine. But as I pulled out of the parking lot, I wasn't thinking about Emma's knife or her threats. I was thinking about Derek Morrison, and how a man with enough money to buy silence was about to discover that some truths refused to stay buried. I drove straight to the Tribune building, my hands still trembling from the confrontation with Emma. The newspaper occupied a converted warehouse in downtown Spokane, all exposed brick and industrial lighting that screamed serious journalism. I'd been here once before for my interview, though I could only remember fragments, sitting across from editor Patricia Hendricks, discussing my investigative instincts. The receptionist recognized me immediately. Maya. Oh my God, we heard about your accident. Patricia's been asking about you for months. Minutes later, I sat in Patricia's office, the same manila folder from Emma's apartment spread across her desk. Patricia was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with silver streaks in her dark hair and a kind of intense focus that made me understand why the Tribune had won 3 state journalism awards under her leadership. This is extraordinary work, she said, flipping through pages of Derek Morrison's financial records that I'd apparently compiled before the accident. Bank transfers to 17 different women over 4 years. Shell companies registered under his father's name. Even communications with university administrators. She looked up at me. How much of this do you remember compiling? Almost none of it. But I'm starting to piece things together. I pulled out my phone, showing her the recording app that was still installed. My PI contact says I had audio evidence of Derek confessing to assault. Is that possible? Patricia's expression grew grim. More than possible. Look at this. She turned her laptop screen toward me, showing a folder labeled Morrison Investigation, December 2024. Inside were dozens of audio files, each timestamped between October and November. She clicked on one dated November 28th, 3 days before the party that destroyed my reputation. Derek's voice filled the room, slurred with alcohol and arrogance. The little bitch thinks she's some kind of detective. But Daddy's already made calls to the Tribune. Her internship's gone the moment she tries to publish anything. My stomach dropped. He killed my job? Tried to. The Morrison family owns significant advertising space with us, and they threatened to pull all their accounts if we moved forward with your investigation. Patricia's jaw tightened. But we don't cave to pressure, Maya. We moved your start date to give you time to recover from the accident, but your position was always secure. She clicked another audio file, this one from November 30th. Derek's voice was clearer now, calculated. Emma's got everything handled. The party tomorrow night will solve our Maya problem permanently. Nobody believes crazy girls who cry rape at parties. The words hit me like ice water. Emma was feeding him information about my investigation, but she was also helping him plan my destruction. There's more. Patricia opened a new folder, this one labeled Financial Evidence. Bank records showed a $15,000 deposit to Emma's account on November 15th, the same day I'd apparently uncovered Derek's most damaging confessions. Your roommate was being paid for her cooperation. $15,000. More than Emma made in her entire work-study job for the semester. No wonder she'd been so eager to help me install recording software. She was getting paid to hand over everything I discovered. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. * Maya, this is Dr. Hartwell from Millfield. Emma Rodriguez called extremely concerned about your mental state. She says you're having paranoid episodes again. Please call me immediately. *. I showed Patricia the message. Her eyebrows shot up. Emma's trying to have you recommitted, she said. Classic move, discredit the victim by questioning their sanity. Can she do that? Force me back into psychiatric treatment? Patricia was already reaching for her phone. Not if we move first. I'm calling our legal department and the police. With this evidence, we can file charges for fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder. She paused, finger hovering over her contacts. Maya, are you prepared for this to get ugly? The Morrisons have serious money and political connections. They'll fight back hard. Through the window, I could see the city where I'd been born and raised, where I'd planned to start my journalism career before Emma and Derek tried to erase me completely. 6 months ago, I'd been a promising college senior with a bright future. Now I was a college dropout with gaps in my memory and a reputation in ruins. But I had something they didn't expect, the truth, carefully documented in my own investigation files. Let's burn it all down, I said. Patricia made 3 phone calls in rapid succession, first to the Tribune's legal team, then to Detective Sarah Kim at Spokane PD, and finally to someone she called our source at the state attorney's office. Within an hour, her office had transformed into a war room, with 2 lawyers, a detective, and a prosecutor gathered around the conference table. The challenge, said Detective Kim, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, is that Emma Rodriguez has already established a pattern of concern for your mental health. She called our non-emergency line twice in December, asking for welfare checks because she was worried about your erratic behavior. She slid a police report across the table. December 3rd, she reported that you'd been making paranoid accusations against fellow students and had threatened self-harm if people didn't believe you. December 8th, she called again saying you disappeared and she was afraid you might hurt yourself or others. My blood ran cold. I was supposedly in Millfield both those dates. Exactly. Which means either the hospital records are forged, or the police reports are fabricated, or... Detective Kim paused meaningfully. Emma was covering for your real whereabouts during that time period. Patricia leaned forward. Maya, I need you to think carefully. In those audio recordings you made of Derek, did he ever mention specific locations? Places where these assaults happened? I closed my eyes, trying to access memories that felt like looking through frosted glass. Fragments surfaced, Derek's voice bragging about his family's private retreat where what happens in the mountains stays in the mountains. The Morrison cabin I'd mentioned to Emma, the one near Highway 52. He talked about a cabin. Said it was perfect for teaching lessons to girls who needed attitude adjustments. The words tasted like poison. Emma got weird when I mentioned it earlier, like she knew exactly what I was talking about. The prosecutor, a thin man named Bradley Chen, no relation, despite the name, pulled up property records on his laptop. Morrison family owns 847 acres in the Cascade foothills, including a main residence and 2 guest cabins. It's isolated, nearest neighbor is 12 miles away. Detective Kim studied the map on Bradley's screen. Highway 52 runs right past the Morrison property. Maya, what's the last thing you remember before waking up in the hospital? Nothing concrete. Just feelings. Fear. The smell of wood smoke. Emma's voice sounding different, harder. I pressed my palms against my temples, trying to force the memories to surface. Wait. There was music playing. Something classical, violin heavy. I remember thinking it was weird because Emma always hated classical music. Patricia and Detective Kim exchanged glances. We need to search that cabin, the detective said. But we'll need probable cause, and the Morrisons' lawyers will fight any warrant request. What if we don't need a warrant? Bradley asked quietly. Maya, did you ever give Emma permission to take you places when you were incapacitated? I don't remember giving permission for anything. Then technically, if she transported you to the Morrison property against your will, that's kidnapping. Especially if you were under the influence of whatever they gave you at the party. Bradley's fingers flew across his keyboard. I can get a search warrant based on kidnapping and attempted murder charges, but we need to move fast. The Morrisons have enough political pull to make evidence disappear. My phone buzzed again, another text from Dr. Hartwell, * Maya, Emma is very concerned. She says you've been making wild accusations and threatening people. I strongly recommend you come in for evaluation today. I can have a bed ready at Millfield within the hour *. The prosecutor read the message over my shoulder. They're trying to silence you before we can file charges. Maya, once you walk into that facility voluntarily, Emma becomes your concerned friend who's trying to help, and everything you say becomes evidence of mental instability rather than criminal conspiracy. Detective Kim was already standing, reaching for her radio. I'm requesting immediate backup for a wellness check on Maya Chen, followed by arrests for conspiracy and fraud. We move now, before they can coordinate their stories. Through the conference room window, I watched the sun setting over Spokane, painting the sky the color of dried blood. Somewhere out there, Derek Morrison was probably destroying evidence while Emma crafted lies to explain away my accusations. They'd spent months carefully constructing my downfall, and now they had minutes to save themselves. But as Detective Kim coordinated with her team and Patricia prepped the Tribune's front page story, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, hope mixed with fury, burning bright enough to light my way through whatever darkness they'd tried to bury me in. Emma had made one crucial mistake in her perfect plan. She'd left me alive, and now I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly what that meant. The police raid on Emma's apartment happened at dawn. I wasn't there to see it, but Detective Kim called me at 6:23 a.m. with an update that made my coffee cup slip from my hands. We found a storage unit key taped under her bathroom sink, she said. Unit 247 at Secure Space on Division Street. Rented under a fake name, Jessica Martinez, but paid for with Emma's credit card. By 8 a.m., I was standing outside storage unit 247 with Detective Kim, Patricia, and 2 crime scene technicians. The metal door rolled up with a grinding screech, revealing what looked like a shrine to my destruction. The walls were covered with printed photos from social media, pictures of me laughing with friends, studying in the library, hugging my parents at graduation events I'd never attended. Red string connected different images like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream, mapping out my relationships and daily routines with obsessive detail. Jesus Christ, Patricia whispered, pulling out her camera. She's been stalking you for months. But it was the filing cabinet in the corner that made my blood freeze. 4 drawers, each labeled with a different phase of Emma's plan: research, implementation, cover-up, and final solution. Detective Kim opened the research door first. Inside were background checks on everyone in my life, my parents, my professors, even Marcus Webb. Emma had documented their schedules, their weaknesses, their potential usefulness to her scheme. She'd known that Marcus struggled financially, that offering him a paid acting job to play the concerned friend would be irresistible. Look at this, one of the crime scene texts called out. He was holding a bound notebook titled My Chin Behavioral Analysis October through December 2024. Every page contained detailed observations of my habits, my reactions to stress, even my menstrual cycle timing. November 15th, I read aloud from a random page. Maya suspicious about Derek's text messages. Recommended increasing social isolation tactics and introducing sleep disruption to heighten paranoia symptoms. Sleep disruption. I remember those weeks in November when I'd had terrible insomnia, how Emma had been so thoughtful about bringing me warm milk before bed. The milk that always made me feel drowsier but somehow more restless at the same time. The implementation drawer contained the real horrors. Printed emails between Emma and Derek dating back to September, planning every detail of my downfall. Screenshots of the fake social media accounts she'd created to spread rumors about me. Even receipts for a voice modulation app she'd used to impersonate me during phone calls. But it was a small digital recorder at the bottom of the drawer that made Detective Kim's face go white. She hit play, and Derek's voice filled the storage unit. The Chin girl is getting too close to the truth about the other incidents. My father says we need a permanent solution this time, something that looks accidental but removes the problem completely. Then Emma's voice, eager and compliant. I've been researching her medication history. Maya takes Adderall for ADHD, but she's been skipping doses lately because of the side effects. If she had an accidental overdose, combined with alcohol, especially after her documented psychiatric crisis. Perfect. Make it look like suicide, but subtle enough that the family won't push for a deeper investigation. I had to grip the storage unit's metal frame to keep from falling. They'd planned to kill me and frame it as suicide, using my legitimate ADHD medication as the weapon. Patricia was photographing everything, her professional calm barely concealing her rage. Maya, this is enough to put them both away for 20 years. Conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, kidnapping. There's more, Detective Kim interrupted, opening the final drawer labeled Final Solution. Inside was a detailed timeline of the 2 weeks I'd supposedly spent at Millfield, cross-referenced with my actual location, the Morrison family cabin. According to Emma's notes, they'd kept me drugged and disoriented at the cabin while she maintained the fiction of my psychiatric hospitalization. She'd even forged daily progress reports from Dr. Hartwell, sending them to my parents to explain why I couldn't have visitors or make phone calls. December 10th, I read from Emma's timeline. Maya starting to remember fragments from the party. Increased sedation necessary. Derek becoming impatient with timeline, family pressure to resolve situation before Christmas break. December 14th, Dr. Hartwell, real one, called Emma's cell asking about Maya's discharge paperwork discrepancies. Cover blown. Derek authorized immediate disposal protocol. Disposal protocol. They'd written about killing me like I was hazardous waste. The final entry was dated December 15th, the day of my accident, Highway 52 plan activated. Maya's accidental overdose story changed to tragic car crash during psychiatric transfer. Emma to play grieving friend role indefinitely. Detective Kim was already on her radio, calling for additional units. We need Derek Morrison in custody immediately. Consider him armed and extremely dangerous. But as I stared at the evidence of Emma's months-long campaign to erase me, one detail kept nagging at my mind. The timeline showed meticulous planning through December 14th, but December 15th, the day that was supposed to end with my death, had only that one brief entry. Something had gone wrong with their plan. Something Emma hadn't documented, hadn't expected. And I was starting to remember what it was. The missing piece hit me while Detective Kim was coordinating Derek's arrest warrant. I was staring at Emma's timeline when a fragment of memory blazed to life, not from December 15th, but from December 14th, the day before my supposed disposal. Detective, I said urgently. Emma's timeline ends on December 15th, but what if their plan actually fell apart the day before? She looked up from her radio. What do you mean? I remember something. A phone call. I pressed my palms against my temples, forcing the memory to surface. December 14th, evening. I was in the cabin, barely conscious from whatever they'd been giving me. But I heard Derek on the phone, and he was furious. The memory crystallized like ice forming on glass. Derek's voice, sharp with panic. What do you mean the Tribune editor called the police? I thought you said Maya's investigation was contained. And then another voice, not Emma's, but older, authoritative. Derek's father, the Chin girl, filed a formal complaint with the state attorney's office on December 10th. Somehow she got access to a phone and called from the psychiatric facility. Except the facility has no record of her making any calls. Patricia grabbed my arm. Maya, are you saying you actually contacted authorities while you were being held at the cabin? I think so. The memories are fragmented, but... I closed my eyes, chasing the wispy recollections. There was a landline in the cabin kitchen. Old rotary phone, probably installed when the place was built. Emma and Derek didn't know about it because it was hidden behind a cabinet. Detective Kim was already pulling up records on her laptop. December 10th, we received an anonymous tip about the Morrison family covering up sexual assaults at multiple universities. The caller claimed to have documentary evidence, but the line went dead before we could trace it. That was me, I whispered. I was lucid enough for maybe 10 minutes while they were both out getting supplies. I found the phone and called 911, but I was so disoriented I could barely speak coherently. The crime scene tech held up another document from Emma's files, a hand-drawn map of the cabin with notes scribbled in the margins. Look at this. December 14th entry, found evidence Maya accessed kitchen phone. Security compromised. Derek's father demanding immediate extraction. Below that, in different handwriting that looked like Derek's, Dad's lawyer says state police planning raids on all family properties. Move to Highway 52 contingency tonight. Highway 52 contingency. They'd been forced to change their plan from a fake overdose to a car accident because I'd managed to alert authorities to my real location. That's why you were in the car with Emma on December 15th, Detective Kim said grimly. They were trying to transport you somewhere else, probably to stage the accident farther from the cabin. But even as the pieces clicked together, something else was bothering me. Emma's storage unit contained months of meticulous planning, but it also contained something that made no sense, a folder labeled post-accident contingencies with detailed notes about my recovery process. Why would Emma plan for what to do after my accident if the accident was supposed to kill me? I asked, flipping through pages of notes about memory loss, rehabilitation timelines, and long-term reputation management. Patricia read over my shoulder, her expression growing troubled. Unless the accident wasn't supposed to kill you at all. Maya, what if Emma had a different endgame in mind? The folder contained psychological profiles Emma had researched about amnesia and trauma recovery. Articles about how retrograde amnesia victims often never recover certain memories, how they can be convinced that false memories are real, how they become dependent on friends and family to fill in the gaps of their lost time. At the bottom of the folder was a handwritten note in Emma's careful script. Perfect scenario. Maya survives with complete memory loss. Becomes dependent on Emma for information about her past. Emma controls narrative permanently. Maya never investigates Morrison family again. Derek's secrets stay buried. Emma maintains hero friend status and Morrison family gratitude/payment indefinitely. She wasn't trying to kill you, Detective Kim said slowly. She was trying to give you brain damage severe enough to erase your investigation but leave you alive as a controllable witness. The storage unit suddenly felt suffocatingly small. Emma hadn't just betrayed me, she tried to lobotomize me with a car accident, planning to spend the rest of my life feeding me lies about who I was and what had happened to me. And it had almost worked. My phone rang while we were still processing the horror of Emma's storage unit. The caller ID showed my mother's number, but when I answered, a stranger's voice greeted me. Maya-chan? This is attorney Rebecca Morrison. I represent the Morrison family. Derek's aunt. I'd seen her name in the financial documents. She'd handled several of the NDA payments to Derek's previous victims. Ms. Chen, I understand there's been some confusion about events from last December. My clients are prepared to offer a substantial settlement to resolve any misunderstandings. Detective Kim grabbed my phone and put it on speaker. This is Detective Kim, SPD. Are you attempting to bribe a witness in an active criminal investigation? Detective, I'm simply trying to prevent a troubled young woman from making false accusations that could destroy innocent lives. My clients have documentation proving Maya Chen was voluntarily admitted to psychiatric care last December due to alcohol-induced delusions. Your clients kidnapped and attempted to murder my witness. Rebecca Morrison's laugh was cold as winter rain. Detective, I have signed affidavits from 3 medical professionals stating that Maya Chen suffers from severe paranoid ideation and has a documented history of making fabricated assault allegations. Any claims she's making now are clearly the product of head trauma combined with pre-existing mental illness. Patricia stepped forward, her camera still clicking away at Emma's evidence boards. Ms. Morrison, this is Patricia Hendricks from the Spokane Tribune. We're running a front-page story tomorrow about your family's systematic cover-up of sexual assaults across multiple universities. Would you like to comment? The line went silent for several seconds. When Rebecca spoke again, her voice had lost its confident edge. Ms. Hendricks, I strongly advise against publishing unsubstantiated allegations. The Morrison family has significant resources to protect their reputation, including paying college students to destroy evidence and attempt murder. I have no idea what you're referring to. Detective Kim held up Emma's notebook, reading directly from it. December 12th entry, Rebecca Morrison wired additional $25,000 to operational account. Authorized to use any means necessary to neutralize Maya Chen threat permanently. That's your signature on the wire transfer authorization, counselor. This time the silence stretched longer. I could hear typing in the background. Rebecca was probably already calling in favors, trying to get ahead of the story. Detective Kim, you'll be hearing from the district attorney's office within the hour. This investigation is being transferred to federal jurisdiction due to the interstate nature of the alleged crimes. She hung up before any of us could respond. Patricia lowered her camera, her expression grim. They're going to try to bury this at the federal level. Judge Morrison sits on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. He has connections everywhere. But Detective Kim was smiling for the first time since I'd met her. Actually, federal jurisdiction works in our favor. I've been building a RICO case against the Morrison family for 2 years. Maya's evidence just gave us everything we needed to prove systematic conspiracy across state lines. She pulled out a thick file folder I hadn't seen before. Maya, you weren't Derek's first victim. Or his fifth. We've identified 23 women across 4 states who were assaulted by Derek Morrison, with evidence of his family's involvement in covering up each incident. Your investigation was the missing piece we needed to connect everything. As if summoned by her words, Detective Kim's radio crackled to life. Detective Kim, we have Derek Morrison in custody at SeaTac Airport. He was attempting to board a flight to Geneva with $2.3 million in cryptocurrency accounts and forged identity documents. 23 women. I stared at Emma's obsessive documentation, realizing that my former best friend hadn't just betrayed me, she'd helped a serial predator escape justice for crimes spanning years. And now, finally, we were going to make them all pay. The federal agents arrived at the Tribune building within hours, led by a stern woman named Agent Sarah Chen who looked like she could bench press a car. No relation to me, but she had the same methodical intensity one was starting to recognize in myself. Maya, we need you to understand something, she said, spreading additional files across Patricia's conference table. Derek Morrison isn't just a serial predator. His family has been running what amounts to a criminal enterprise for decades. The files contained bank records, property transfers, and communication intercepts that painted a picture far worse than anything I'd uncovered. The Morrison family owned shell companies across 6 states, specifically designed to relocate problematic family members and pay off victims before criminal charges could be filed. Your roommate Emma wasn't working alone, Agent Chen continued. She was part of a network of college-age operatives the Morrison family has been cultivating for years. Students who need money, who have access to campus social circles, who can identify potential threats to the family's interests. Patricia leaned forward, her journalist instincts sharp as razors. How many students are we talking about? 47 confirmed operatives across 12 universities since 2018. They're paid between $5,000 and $50,000 per assignment depending on the complexity. Emma Rodriguez received $73,000 over 8 months for targeting you specifically. The number hit me like a physical blow. $73,000. Emma had sold our friendship, my safety, my entire future for the cost of a decent used car. Agent Chen pulled up security footage on her laptop. This is from SeaTac Airport, 30 minutes before Derek's arrest. The grainy video showed Derek Morrison at a departure gate, but he wasn't alone. A familiar figure sat beside him, Marcus Webb, the journalism student I trusted with my fragmented memories. Marcus was part of it too, I whispered. Marcus Webb has been feeding the Morrison family information about student journalists at 3 different universities. Your investigation into Greek life misconduct wasn't the first time he'd helped them identify threats. Agent Chen paused the video, zooming in on Marcus's face. He received $15,000 for monitoring your research and reporting your progress to Emma weekly. Every person I trusted, every relationship I thought was genuine, had been purchased and orchestrated. I felt like I was drowning in betrayal, struggling to find something solid to hold on to. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Maya, this is Janet Walsh, the PI you hired. I'm in federal protective custody, but I need you to know, Emma Rodriguez contacted me yesterday pretending to be you. She tried to hire me to investigate Derek Morrison, claiming she was your representative. When I told her you'd already paid me for that investigation months ago, she hung up immediately. I showed the text to Agent Chen, whose expression darkened further. Emma's still trying to control the narrative. Even in custody, she's attempting to manipulate the evidence. Wait, I said, a horrible realization creeping over me. If Emma was trying to hire Janet yesterday, that means she knew I was recovering my memories before I confronted her at the apartment. Agent Chen nodded grimly. We believe Emma has been monitoring your recovery process through multiple channels. Your physical therapist, your doctor's office, even your landlord, someone's been feeding her information about your progress. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. It wasn't just Derek and Emma, it was an entire network of people who'd been paid to watch me, to report on my recovery, to ensure I never remembered enough to threaten the Morrison family's secrets. But as I sat in that conference room, surrounded by evidence of systematic betrayal, I felt something unexpected rising in my chest. Not despair, but rage. Pure, crystalline fury at being treated like a commodity to be bought, sold, and disposed of. They'd tried to erase me, but I was still here. And now I knew exactly how deep their corruption ran. Agent Chen, I said, my voice steadier than it had been in months, I want to help you destroy all of them. The trial lasted 6 weeks, and I testified on 17 different days. By the time it ended, the Morrison family's criminal enterprise had unraveled completely. Derek got 25 years, his father got 15, and Rebecca Morrison was disbarred and sentenced to 8 years for racketeering. But Emma's sentencing hearing was the moment I'd been waiting for. She sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back severely, looking nothing like the warm, laughing roommate who'd shared pizza and true crime podcasts with me. When Judge Martinez asked if I wanted to give a victim impact statement, I stood with the evidence folder that had started it all. Your Honor, Emma Rodriguez didn't just betray our friendship. She sold my identity, my memories, and my future for $73,000. I looked directly at Emma, who refused to meet my eyes. She planned to steal my entire life and convinced me to be grateful for the scraps she left behind. Emma's lawyer had tried to paint her as a misguided young woman who'd gotten in over her head, but the evidence told a different story. FBI forensic accountants had traced payments from the Morrison family going back to Emma's sophomore year. She'd been recruiting other operatives, building the network that had targeted dozens of students across multiple campuses. The defendant orchestrated a conspiracy that victimized at least 47 students, Judge Martinez said during sentencing. She systematically targeted young women who posed threats to the Morrison family's criminal activities. This court sentences Emma Rodriguez to 18 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for 12 years. Emma finally looked at me as the bailiffs led her away. Her eyes held no remorse, no recognition of the damage she'd caused. Only cold calculation, probably already planning her appeal. But I wasn't thinking about Emma anymore. The Spokane Tribune's investigation had won a Pulitzer Prize for public service, with my name listed as the primary researcher. Patricia Hendricks had held my position open throughout the trial, and now I had my own byline on the follow-up stories documenting the Morrison network's collapse. More importantly, 26 of Derek's victims had come forward after our story broke. The FBI recovered $4.2 million in hush money payments, most of which was returned to the women who'd been silenced. 3 university administrators resigned. 5 campus police officers were indicted for accepting bribes. The best part? I'd finally graduated from State University. The dean personally handed me my diploma at a private ceremony, acknowledging that my incomplete grades from December were the result of extraordinary circumstances beyond the students' control. 6 months after the trial ended, I got a call from Janet Walsh, the private investigator who'd helped me uncover the truth. Maya, I've got something you need to see, she said. Emma's been writing letters from prison. Not to lawyers, to other inmates with computer access. She's trying to rebuild her network. I drove to Janet's office, where she showed me intercepted communications proving Emma was still recruiting people to monitor my activities, still trying to control information about me from behind bars. She'll never stop, Janet said quietly. Women like Emma don't learn remorse, they learn better methods. But as I read Emma's desperate attempts to maintain relevance from her prison cell, I felt only pity. She was still trying to live in a world where I was her victim, where she held power over my narrative. That world no longer existed. I published my final story about the Morrison case on the 2-year anniversary of my accident. The headline read, How I Survived My Best Friend's Attempt to Erase Me, and Brought Down a Criminal Empire. Within hours, my editor Patricia called with news that 3 major publishers wanted to discuss book deals. Netflix had reached out about adaptation rights. Speaking requests were pouring in from universities and law enforcement conferences. But the message that mattered most came from someone I'd never expected to hear from again. Maya, this is Dr. Marcus Webb, yes, the same Marcus. I'm writing from federal prison, where I'm serving 5 years for my role in the Morrison conspiracy. I know I have no right to ask forgiveness, but I need you to know that your courage in exposing this network saved dozens of other women from being targeted. I'm teaching literacy classes here now, trying to make amends in whatever small way I can. I hope someday you can find peace knowing that your refusal to stay silent changed everything. I deleted the message without responding. Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness, only consequences. That evening, I stood in my new apartment, a 2-bedroom place with actual counter space and windows that faced east toward the mountains. My Pulitzer certificate hung above my desk, next to my framed State University diploma and a photo from the Tribune's celebration party. In the photo, I'm laughing at something Patricia said, surrounded by the investigative team that had helped me rebuild not just my story, but my entire sense of self. My smile is genuine, unguarded, the expression of someone who knows exactly who she is and what she's capable of. Emma had tried to turn me into a character in her story, a victim who would be forever grateful for whatever version of reality she chose to provide. Instead, I'd become the author of my own narrative, with a voice powerful enough to bring down anyone who tried to silence it. My phone buzzed with a text from my editor. Maya, just got word that the Department of Justice wants to hire you as a consultant on their new task force investigating campus criminal networks. Interested? I set my phone aside without answering immediately. Outside my window, Spokane glittered in the twilight, full of stories waiting to be uncovered and truths demanding to be told. 6 months ago, strangers had apologized to me for something I couldn't remember. Now I remembered everything, and I'd made sure the whole world would remember too. Emma had taught me something valuable, though she'd never intended to. The most dangerous person to a conspiracy is someone who refuses to stay buried. And I was just getting started.